Alright, everybody. Welcome to what will be the final episode of the Save the Extreme podcast for the year 2020. We've survived. As always, I am Josh Blaser from Game Wisdom, and my co-host from Nexus Games, Shark. How are you doing?
I'm doing pretty good. And some of us have survived, some of us haven't.
It's been one of those years, I guess. This will probably be a year we're going to all be looking back on, I guess. Not exactly in the happiest way.
I don't know if this is one of those years. This is like the years that have never come in our lifetimes kind of thing. This is one of the years of our ancestors.
Yep. Maybe somebody will be watching this archive like 100 years from now.
Yeah, I'm wondering what the heck is going on in this year.
When I was coming up with the thumbnail, I was debating going very depressing and just show nothing but scenes of Doom Eternal to represent 2020. You know, the happy-go-lucky time when hell arrived on Earth.
I mean, you should have represented the hell with Spelunky. or Super Meat Boy, the new one.
But it has been a very crazy year, especially for things around here with Game Wisdom and as well with Nexus Games. Hey, Mojo. So, to begin with, before we get into kind of our countdown, some of the major events, I guess let's quickly go over, talk about what we've done or what we're hoping we've accomplished over the last year. So, for me, I was hoping to do more with my library and school talks, and early March, things were starting to really pick up there. And then, of course, the pandemic really hit just as I was scheduling a trip to go to Washington for the first time. And
yeah, you were planning on going there Death Stranding style, weren't you?
Yeah, exactly, with all the Monster Energy drinks I could fit into my backpack. And Death Stranding would probably be another really good representation of 2020, wouldn't it?
Yeah, probably.
Game industry does really good job predicting sometimes, right?
Yeah.
I'm sure in the next few days we'll get the arrival of the cyber demons and imps, right?
I guess. What would that be from?
From Doom there.
Doom has cyber imps?
Cyber demons.
Cyber demons?
Yeah, thank you, Mojo. But it's been very crazy. I guess growth-wise, I think I've gotten over 1,000 subscribers over the last year, which, again, for a channel like this, is definitely, I think, a really positive uptick. Because, again, I'm not expecting to be getting, 15 to 20,000 subscribers a month, especially with the topics we cover here.
Yeah, I'm up to 31 subscribers over here on my channel.
There you go. Well, it took me at least a year to get to 1,000, so... No, I think it took me more like 2 years to get to 1,000, so... you are slowly but surely going to be getting there. Again, just make a video about how much you hate Spelunky and... I don't know, hate Last of Us, we'll probably get like 5,000 subscribers. But things definitely didn't go as planned this year, to be honest, especially with the pandemic going on and really just pushing everything back. I mean, from what we're seeing, chances are we're not going to get some semblance of normality until probably, end of 2021, maybe early 22.
Probably. Because we're not... They're starting to roll things out to get it to us and everything, but, before, it'll probably be early 2022 before maybe even a third of the Earth's population has been treated.
And unfortunately, that really is bad for somebody who's trying to do more in education and academia. Because if the schools and the colleges aren't comfortable with having people over and doing stuff, well, then that kind of stops me.
Well, I know a lot of the schools are open to it because, they've hosted several schools have hosted their own breeding sessions.
Mm-hmm.
Virus breeding sections.
Yeah, it's going to be really great when it comes to trying to get everyone, vaccinated over the next year.
Mm-hmm.
Let's see. So, the second book, I think, again, this whole year is just a whirlwind, but the second book came out last year. I finished my third book, which I've been reviewing the final proofs for it, and ideally it will be out by early April. And that's going to be all on roguelike design. I'm really looking forward to this one, because I think this is going to be a really solid entry in the series, and something I don't think a lot of people really discuss in terms of roguelike design.
Yeah. I need to interview you one day on that book and ask you, what is a rogue?
There we go. In some possibly exciting news, a contact reached out to me about a college who's interested in interviewing me about my thoughts on design. And that is not going to be happening until at least possibly March. So, fingers are crossed on that one. And in a few days, I guess to begin my New Year's resolution, I'm going to be beginning to write my fourth book on horror. And that one, I have no idea where that one's going to go. It's either going to be, I think, a very short or a very long entry. Because horror is, I think, more psychology than it is mechanics. At least in terms of some of the good examples.
Mm-hmm.
Anything else happening? I guess in terms of the show, channel, everything here, I'd like to give a shout out to all the fans who have been watching, the new people as well as the regulars who have come on, who have either supported with the super chat or just come on to talk and such. I really do appreciate everyone. And hopefully here's to another round of new people coming in over 2021. I know we've got a lot of people in the Discord who have joined. I hope we get more of them to, come on for the live shows or at least comment more, because it's always great to hear when you're not just shouting to the ether for the videos and the casts.
Oh yeah.
Shark now gets it as well, or you streamed before you did the YouTube channel, so you definitely understand what it's like to just be talking and seeing like no comments in the chat.
Oh yeah. Like in my streaming from like late 2014 all the way to I think it was around 2017 or so. In that 2-ish year span, I shouted into the ether so much because it's like, here's a live stream. Here you play a game and talk even though nobody's talking back to you. It's like, like when you have those interactive conversations, it is so much fun and so enjoyable kind of thing, talking to everybody.
Mm-hmm.
But when there is nobody and you have to think of something interesting to talk about with yourself, it's like, it feels like a vampire's like lashed on your neck and sucking every feeling that you have out of your body.
Mm-hmm. And I guess one of the advantages of the stuff that we do on our respective channels is that we don't really put on an act. Like, we don't, shout and scream. We don't try to be something that we're not. So it takes, I think, less mental energy for us to do our shows. Like, I try to watch other YouTubers, and I can't get past the whole, act of yelling and screaming.
Yeah, I mean, the act of yelling and screaming is really, something that really boosts their channels and whatnot. And we don't get that boost, sadly.
Yeah. I was watching, some random YouTuber the other day, and he actually, in the first minute of the thing, he actually, called out the audience to subscribe, and he put up the numbers of how many people who watch him who didn't subscribe to the channel, which I thought was very tacky.
Yeah, a lot of you. That's a new trend, by the way.
Oh, no.
You're, that's
Old
the
man
last.
Josh.
I think it's the last 2 months or so that has been popping up everywhere, and it's going to continue to pop up everywhere, and it's going to be every YouTube channel. Do you know that 5,000 people watched this video and only 1,000 of them were subscribed? Get subscribed,
I just like the 5,000 watch.
Yeah, and now they're pushing towards that kind of thing, which means more than likely the algorithm's going to start favoring that, which means that, if you want to have any reasonable growth, you're going to have to start saying that at the beginning of all your videos. And I'm going to have to say it at the beginning of all mine.
Lovely. So once again, old man Josh learns about a YouTube trend 2-3 months late.
Well, it's still becoming a trend.
Hello,
Mike.
Hey, Mike. Let's see. Anything else? Yeah, so I guess my goal for 2021 will be A, to write my new book, B, hopefully do another round of reaching out to schools and libraries. Ideally, I'm hoping to do like a really strong push maybe around like May or June. I'm hoping that by then we'll have things kind of solidify as to what's going on with the whole pandemic here. And I can then kind of reach out comfortably knowing whether or not libraries and schools have, the funding as well as support to do this kind of stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And I guess my third goal would be, I would like to hit 10,000 subscribers by the end of 2021. I think we're like knocking on 7,000 right now. I'm hoping as things continue to uptick that I can do it. I don't know if I can, but that's kind of my goal.
Yeah. We'll have to go.
But I think that's it for me. So, Shark, I'll let you take things over. So, what has 2020 been for you?
Well, I started, 3 months ago, started streaming on YouTube. Streaming on my channel, not just being a guest on Josh's channel, and been getting out a lot more content than I thought I was going to be able to get out. I was aiming for 2 a week, and I was figuring that I was probably going to have troubles with that kind of thing. But been getting out 4 a week for a while now, and now it's turned to 5. Because we have, I think it's 5. I think I'm counting right. Because we have the Safeway Stream podcast, aka what we're doing now. We have the new one, the Indie Inquiry. Have my game stream. Have my dev stream. No, it's 4. It went from 3 to 4. That's what it was. Instead of 4 to 5, it's 3 to 4. But we're up to 4 pieces of content every week, and that's a lot more than I thought we would get to. And things are going as well as could be expected, starting from basically 0 subscribers, which is technically not very well, but it's way better than I could, than your normal person could have hoped for. Because the fact is you have 31 subscribers, you expect to do a live stream and get 0 people there the entire time. And I have luckily gotten more than 0. I've been getting 2, 3, 4 kind of thing. Although chat's usually dead, but the few times when it's not dead, it's been really, really fun. And of course, I enjoy the dev streams, even if nobody shows up to those. I enjoy them more if people show up to them, but just enjoy working on my game. And that goes into the other point of is I want to. We're really, really fighting hard to get Neon Continuum ready to release in 2021. I don't know if we're going to get to it, but I know that if we do, it'll be towards the end of 2020, probably like August, kind of thing, right around the deadline for the indies kind of thing, because you go past I think it's August, and you get into AAA territory, and you don't want to launch during that time. But we'll have to see if we can pull it out this year. Hopefully we can, because I certainly don't want to wait until February or after in 2022 to release it. And hopefully we can get us, by the end of the year, we'll have us 3,000 plus subscribers on this channel because I need 3,000 plus people to know about Neon Continuum before it launches. So it's a insanely lofty goal, but and if I achieve that, then you could probably add another 3,000 to your goal there, Josh.
Mm-hmm.
My goal adds another 3,000 to your goal.
Perfect.
Or maybe not 3,000. Conversion rate didn't go work on that way. Probably 1,000.
Well, will certainly help. And speaking about my book, I just got an email from the publisher. There is a end of the year coupon code for my books, so for all their books, 30% off. So I'm going to put that in the chat. So if anyone wants to do a very, very last minute book buying, you can use that code. But it's very hard, I think, to predict what's going to happen. I mean, who really thought we would be here right now at the end of 2020 like this?
Well, see, I predicted us to be right here, but the only difference is there was a hole in the back of your house, and you could see like buildings on fire out behind you, and it wasn't a green screen.
And we'll have to see again in terms of like things I want to do to improve things. I ordered a new camera, so I'll want to go to a 1080p camera, hopefully by the start of 2021. So now everyone can see me in full HD quality, because that brings in the subscribers, right?
Yeah, it brings in all the subscribers.
Yeah.
Although the only way they're going to see you in true 1080 is if you make your camera full screen.
Yeah. Well, hopefully I'll be able to...
But it will be increased quality while you're smaller.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. It's going to be fun setting things up for the new camera. For live shows I have planned, unfortunately, with the holiday season, I can't really talk to developers to get them on for a cast just yet. I did reach out to my friend Z at Serenity Forge, and we're going to do probably a New Year catch-up in a few weeks. I still need to get a few developers who have completely disappeared on me to try and get them back on. And we're hopefully going to be doing a roundtable, I would say safely second or third week of January. Again, it's hard to nail down developers when it comes to setting times.
You mean safely extreme?
Yeah. They should just come for a safely extreme cast.
Yeah, you've tried that already.
Yeah. Yeah, we're going to try and get Tomo on, but he unfortunately has disappeared on us. So ideally we'll have him on someday in the future.
Yep.
But I think with that, let's talk a little bit about some of the major events and some of our favorite games of 2020. We can remember, again, it's been such a crazy year. I guess for me, like one of the games I wanted to give a shout out to that wasn't on my top 10 list would be Bloodstained Curse of the Moon 2 that came out, I think it was like January or February of this year. It's very, the game industry is I think very weird in that I think it tends to forget the games that came out, in the first 2 to 3 months of each year. Or maybe it's just me, I don't know. But I really did like Bloodstained 2. I felt it was a really solid modern retro platformer. And the fact that they added in so many different modes and the almost like Mega Man style system that you get like near the end, I thought it did a really great job. I felt the difficulty was a little too extreme, which seems to be kind of a major point about some of the games I didn't like this year. Stuff like Spelunky, Super Meat Boy Forever, and I think a few other ones like that, was it Hellpoint? Not the other Souls like they came out. And it felt like developers were still trying to chase, the super hardcore. Oh, it was Hellpoint. In terms of its difficulty design.
Well, we all know that the harder the game is, the better it sells, right?
Mm-hmm. So I guess, going to you, Shark, what were some of the games that stood out to you that you really enjoyed this year?
Well, I really enjoyed Among Us and Ark this year?
Mm-hmm.
Because those were both made in 2020, right?
Nope.
Not according to the Game Awards.
Mm-hmm. Maybe
They're
they'll
both
nominate
2020.
Madden 2017 for best sports of 2020.
They're top 2020 games. But I have enjoyed a lot of Among Us and Ark as well. Although Among Us was a commercial failure back in 2018 and then have a resurgence in 2020. And Ark was you know, it had a lot of controversy when it first came out. I think it was in 2014, 2013, somewhere in there.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it's a pretty solid game now, but like there are definitely lots of issues with it still that I wish they would fix. And they probably never will, since Ark 2 is coming out sometime down the road.
Mm-hmm.
So hopefully they fix those things in Ark 2, but we'll have to see.
Well, I know Vin Diesel's doing both design and voice acting for Ark 2, so maybe you could send him a message, see if he'll fix the issues for you.
And to David's point, my game is going to be free to play, David.
Mm-hmm.
Free to play with a brand new consumer-friendly model that I will be working on for a while. And hopefully when we get things up and testing and everything, consumers can give me their feedback on it, and hopefully we can make it even more consumer-friendly than it is now, at the same time of making it able to earn money. Because, like, it could just be 100% free and be consumer-friendly, but not going to make my money back on that.
Mm-hmm.
But, trying to make a brand new model that is consumer-friendly.
But don't worry, everyone will call it pay to win just to help you out.
Oh, yeah, everybody will. And they'll also call it loot boxes and all kinds of other stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And, of course, when I tell them it's not loot boxes, they'll be like, oh, yeah, it's surprise mechanics. It's like, no, it's a card pack. Like traditional, card games. But card packs are loot boxes. No card packs are card back. Then what about Hearthstone? Hearthstone is loot boxes.
What's the difference? And then you have to explain that for 20 minutes.
Yeah, and I'll have to do that for every third comment probably on the store page.
Yeah, pretty much. And especially if a YouTuber pulls it up and calls it pay to win.
Yep.
Let's see, I guess. Going back to me, a few other games I really enjoy, and I'm doing my top 10 list slowly but surely on Game Wisdom, so I guess I can spoil some of the other games. I did enjoy Yakuza Like a Dragon. It's the one, I guess, every year I find one RPG game to try and go all in on. I guess that's it for this year. I'm at about 45 hours in, and I think I'm finally on the final chapter of the game.
I don't know if I would define it as an RPG, though. It's more of a everything game. Like GTA and Red Dead Redemption, Cyberpunk.
Well, I've been leveling up, so it definitely has RPG mechanics in it for sure.
Yeah. Definitely has mechanics in it.
I enjoyed it, but I do feel that a lot of the praise for it is just the fact that the developers just completely rebuilt their entire game design. It would be basically like if Mass Effect, or if BioWare decided for the next Mass Effect, they're going to turn into a Souls-like and make the Mass Effect like that. Which maybe they'll do that, considering how things have gone for them in the last few years.
Yeah. And yes, David, if I didn't love it, I wouldn't be doing it. Because game development is pretty much the worst job to do if you don't love it.
Mm-hmm.
Because it's pretty much the worst job to do unless you enjoy doing it. It's like imagine if you had to clean out the sewers kind of thing, but you were getting paid. You could potentially get paid absolutely nothing for cleaning out the sewers. You would not want to do that job unless you really love cleaning out the sewers. And in my case, I really like cleaning out the sewers. In in terms of game development.
And we've seen this year, especially a lot of developers, trying to push their games forward like that. And it has been, I guess, here's a kind of a question for you. Do you think this year has been better or worse for indie developers?
Define what you mean by indie developer.
Smaller developers trying to kind of break out or, grow this year.
So you're talking about startup indies?
I would say startup or, smaller side, maybe less than, 10 employees kind of thing.
And are you referring to hobbyists that are trying to release their games for money?
Sure.
Oh, that's a real. There's no way to package all that together. I would say the hobbyists that are trying to sell their games are making things worse for everybody. As for getting discovered and everything with the other ones, I think that's gotten harder and everything. It gets harder and harder every year. Because every year, more and more hobbyists, flood the store and with games that are not up to commercial quality. And more and more indies are listening to our podcast or other people, telling them, watch our podcast and then tell them the same information and, have viewers kind of thing. And they're becoming more visually, they're standing out more and more getting noticed, which is causing others to be noticed less. So, I mean, it's like there's this limited number of people who can be discovered at any point in time. Although, as that number does slowly go up in two directions. Slowly goes up by the space growing in size over time because people are, being born and getting into PC gaming and whatnot and all this other stuff. And the other way is people are expanding, into other games, but that means they're contracting on the others, meaning that the successes become less successful and the spread goes farther. So, like, it's growing in two ways, but, like, considering all the new entries and everything, all of this and all that kind of thing, all the changes that have come over this last year kind of thing, that's not really changing pretty much anything. Matter of fact, it's still just steadily going to a worse shape kind of thing. Because, when you have this, I don't know, like, let's just, let's throw out some random numbers that have no basis in fact, just, random numbers that are rough guesstimation. Let's just say that the PC space is growing by, I don't know, 2%. And then that indie spread is causing developers to be 2%, the ones that get noticed, causing them to be, let's say, 5% less successful and, expanding into 5% more games kind of thing. That is creating 7% more, people getting noticed kind of thing. And you're like, yay, that's 7%. That's a lot better than what we had before. But the thing is we probably, like, 300%ed the number of people who, the number of games that went out there. It's probably not 300%. It's probably closer to like 200, 150 or something. But we vastly increased that number, and we only increased the number noticed by 7%. So when you take the ratios kind of thing, the ratios got even worse.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think, again, the issue that we've seen is that the growth of YouTube and, the quote-unquote influencer culture has definitely exploded. And it gets bigger and bigger. Damn you, math. But it's gotten bigger and bigger, but that doesn't help the game industry. Or specifically, it doesn't help the game developers. Like,
matter of fact, I think in a lot of ways it hurts them.
Mm-hmm. And there's still discussion to be had about what the role of game journalism and game influencers are actually on the industry itself. And it's a very, I think, tricky topic to navigate. We've been hearing talks about, oh, maybe we should charge people to play video games. Maybe that should be the standard. And then some people will argue, no, that's going to kill not only the influencer side, it's going to kill a lot of marketing for smaller developers. But the problem is it's trying to figure out who is this really helping. And I think one of the big things, of course, has been Among Us in terms of this discussion. That for the better part of, what would you say, like 3 months, maybe a little bit more than that, people haven't really shut up about Among Us. And the problem is that, and it's the same for the Game Awards, that for every game that gets nominated, there's, how many other games that just get, pushed down into the mist, never to be heard from again.
Every indie game except for like 2.
Mm-hmm. And when everyone is, chasing Among Us, just as everyone was chasing Fall Guys, how many other...
And Stardew Valley. And...
Mm-hmm. But I don't think, Stardew Valley blew up at least as much as these games did. Or at least it didn't feel like it.
It did. It was just, more accepted because Stardew Valley was a good game.
Mm-hmm.
Through and through. We're Among Us is a good game, but it has lots and lots of issues.
Yeah. And again, those issues are part of the reasons why it failed commercially.
Mm-hmm. Where stuff like, Untitled Goose Game was crap. Frankly. Yeah, and a lot of the YouTuber games are crap.
Mm-hmm. You better hope Neon Continuum doesn't get picked up by YouTubers then, or this will come back to bite you.
It'll get picked up by streamers.
Mm-hmm. But the problem that we've seen is that, and this goes back again to the whole discussion about the independent scene, is that we've played and seen a lot of fantastic indie games this year. Hades, Factorio, Ministry came out last year, right? I don't think that was 2020. It's been supported since then, that's for sure.
Yeah.
Clicker games are still a thing.
It didn't come out this year. I know that.
Mm-hmm.
But it's not fully released yet either.
Really? I think it's considered release.
Is it?
I don't think it has the early access tag anymore.
Then maybe it released off of early access this year.
Yeah, it officially, according to Steam, it did come out September of last year. But
was that full release or was that early access?
That I do not know. But it's at version 6.0 right now.
That sounds like early access when it came out.
Mm-hmm. But to bring this back on point, we saw a lot of really solid indie games that came out this year. Also a lot of solid mobile games. And the problem that what we've seen when it comes to game coverage, it's the same thing that when we talk about the mobile industry, is that a few games dominate the discussion, and people assume that the market is doing well because everyone can't stop talking about Among Us, or everybody can't stop talking about The Last of Us.
Yeah, although they're talking about Last of Us for completely different reasons.
Mm-hmm. But it's very hard for, again, either you boom or you bust. And it's rare, I think, to see developers who are able to live off of being just okay. Stuff like Cliff Harris, Jake Burgett, Jeff Vogue. There's another one that I can't remember off the top of my head. Or even something like Fail Better Games.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's very hard to succeed at all in the industry. Mm-hmm. Even if you keep your budget low.
Yeah. And when, the commercial darling dominates the discussion, the problem that we see from the influencer side is that nobody talks about anything else. I mean,
Have you talked about any of the games that have come out in the last week? The probably 200 games that's come out in the last week. Have you talked about a single one of them?
Well, we played Super Meat Boy, and I think that'll probably be the only example of that.
Was that in the last week, last 7 days?
Yep, we covered it on Wednesday.
But when did it come out?
That Wednesday.
Okay. So, one out of the 200-ish games that come out in the last 7 days.
And when we were playing a few games last night, Will had a comment, or one of the Wills. I think I have 5 or 6 different Wills who are subscribed. And he said that, and I think this is one of those big points, why should the consumer care about average video games? And it's a fair question. I mean, for myself, I cover games for a living, so I play as many games as I get my hands on. But somebody like me, I have over 2,000. Let's see, what is the grand total of games in my library right now? I wonder. It is 2692 on Steam. I am very much the outlier when it comes to Steam libraries. And my library is full of plenty of okay and just plain bad games. But most people don't play average games. They play the games that win, Game of the Year. They play the ones that people can't stop talking about. And while there's certainly a lot of money in the industry, it's not, given to everybody, or at least given on an average.
Yeah. I wish it was, because, my last game would have got some money.
Mm-hmm.
And that's kind of the issue is, you have games like my last game that came out and only made $1,400 and, gross, which, some of you may be looking at it and be like, whoa, $1,400, that's a lot of money. Mm-hmm. It would be if you were given that for a couple of days worth of work kind of thing. Mm-hmm. But, when it takes you 3 years, I mean, would you work for McDonald's for 3 years at full-time plus for $1,400? Would that be something you would like to do? Mm-hmm. Would you find that $1,400 a good $1,400? Yeah. I mean, and then you have to add in the fact that not only did it take me 3 years worth of work kind of thing, but at the same time, it also costed me $5,000-ish for the LLC to actually put it up there. Mm-hmm. And then I had to pay for a musician and all this other stuff and all these tools and a computer and all this other stuff. And the computer alone was over $2,000, Mm-hmm. And, so you're talking about, probably about $8,000, $9,000, $10,000 worth of expenses on top of working for McDonald's for 3 years. And you've got to pay $10,000 and work for 3 years at full time to get $1,400. And that's a negative $8,400 and a negative 3 years worth of your life.
Mm-hmm. And this is one of the issues, for myself, that why I tend to avoid playing big name games when they come out, because what's the point of that? Is it really helping them? If I were to play Cyberpunk, would me streaming that game do anything to help CD Projekt Red right now?
It would help point out the billions and billions of bugs they have in their game.
Yeah. And conversely, would it even help me? Somebody plays Cyberpunk. That's really shocking, YouTube and Twitch right now.
Yeah.
And this is why I tend to focus on independent games and smaller titles because, one, they're more interesting to play, and two, I feel they need the help more than some of the other games.
Mm-hmm.
And
You
go ahead.
know, if things go as I hope they will go, everybody's going to be, next year or so, or whenever Neon Continuum comes out, they're going to be like, oh my god, this is the greatest game ever, and it'll be all the rave and everything, and no one will believe that it was basically not completely made by one person, but made by nearly one person with two outsourced laborers, and I'm not a solo dev because I outsource people, but they will nobody pretty much will believe that it was done by such a small team kind of thing. But the thing is this game is so much smaller scope than my last one. And if you think this game was hard to make, you should see my last one. And that one was done by a team of two.
Yeah. And that's been the issue, that people still don't really understand what goes into game development. And that's not just on the consumer side. I still think a lot of developers out there still don't quite get the magnitude of what it takes to make a successful video game.
And I had a conversation in this on this Discord a while back, like a few weeks ago, kind of thing. And they're like, I hired an artist, and he makes really good art and everything. And I look at the art, and it looks like some average 16-year-old sketches kind of thing. I was like, yeah, I mean, like, I don't know the age of your artist, but I know that there's no way this art would remotely pass for anything as a commercial game. And you'd be lucky if this passed as a hobby project kind of thing.
Yeah. And that's, I think, kind of the issue, that a lot of developers have trouble, I think, taking that step from hobbyist to full-time developer. And this is the thing that still infuriates me. You'll see this on like Twitter, Facebook groups, and so on. People who never want to hear bad news about their games or hear any issues about it. And you really can't grow because of that. And like you said, with the R's example, I'm sure people told them, wow, this art looks amazing, it's perfect, you should totally release your game with this art.
Problem.
And to Nikita's question, are mobile games, they're easier in terms of you're working on a more of a fix. I think the development is easier. The problem with monetizing is that you're entering a market that is dominated by major companies, both Western and Eastern, and it's going to take a lot of people watching a lot of ads or clicking on things to get that money, and it does, I think, really hamstring what you can make, because we've seen developers try to go the full big budget mobile game, and it just sinks because that market doesn't want to buy a $40 game or buy a game that is an 80 to 100 hour long playthrough. They want to play something that they can quickly get into, and then that time happens organically.
Well, they do. They do want to play that. They just want to play it in the form of Genshin Impact.
Or Arc Knights, which I think I got Ramin hooked on Arc Knights earlier this year.
But it's a very different kind of experience, kind of thing. And the thing is if you're not one of those games, you're not going to stand out, kind of thing. And if you don't stand out, you're likely not to make it anywhere because you put out this mobile game with, ad support. Let's just say you put out, ad support. Maybe in about 20 years, you might hit the $50 mark, which then the advertiser still isn't going to pay you a single dime until you hit $100. Just the way that Steam won't pay you a single dime,
or
you hit about $200 gross because they're not going to write you a check for anything less than $100.
Yeah, and here's the thing: those mobile games, or the ones that are doing well, they moved away from ad-based clicking. Like, that's now considered frowned upon by some of the big name like mobile streamers and mobile developers. It's no longer about forcing you to click on ads. People want a quality game that has monetization. They don't want to play a game that the monetization is kind of tacked on. And again, that's another really big point about even with independent games these days, that you can't just think, oh, Stardew Valley did this in 2015, 2016. Let me just do the same thing and I'll succeed. It doesn't work like that. And we've had this discussion that there are plenty of independent games released that feel worse than the games they're trying to emulate. How many FTL clones did we see? How many Slay the Spire clones have we seen?
We haven't seen any. They've all gotten buried.
Oh no, I've seen them because I'm the guy who searches them out.
Yeah, like you've seen them. We're talking about the normal people.
Yeah. Like that normal in the Woods game that I played.
I haven't even heard about them.
And that makes it very hard for the games that do manage to stand out. Oh, let me see.
Yeah, the thing about that is, if you're doing a game based off of another game, and you either have to be, and we've said this many times, you either have to be better or different.
Yep.
And, if you're trying to be better than, I don't know, a Spider-Man game, good luck being a AAA developer. Because you're going to need to be a AAA developer to be better than a Spider-Man game,
And how many, like indie games who thought their game could be better, they just end up being worse. And again, this is why I think a very big trend for me this year has been really trying to do a push towards legitimizing game criticism. And a lot of my articles on Medium have been taking off with those topics. Because it's not something I think, again, a lot of people openly discuss. There's game journalism, or I should put air quotes there, but that's not the same as game criticism. Just like when we talk about video games, that's not the same as when you see, major YouTubers and streamers talk about video games.
Oh, there's no difference between what we do and journalists. There's zero difference. Here's, everything gets 7 out of 10 or better. And, only the really, really bad stuff gets 7 out of 10.
Everything gets 9 out of 10s, right?
Yeah, pretty much.
And you have to pay for that extra 1 point, right? To get to 10 out of 10?
Yes. You have to pay a few $1 million.
Yeah.
That's exactly how we fund the entire YouTube channel. Just by, taking those $1 million and just putting it right here into this stuff. And that's the reason why you see this high quality 720p camera from Josh.
And the shark image.
Yeah, and now he's upgrading to 1080p because somebody else just paid us a few $1 million, right?
If someone donates $5 million right now, I'll get a green screen. Right now, people, come on. Who's going to step up?
You got 20 seconds.
Exactly. And getting back to the top about trying to support and cover indie games, several of the games on my top 10 list came from the independent space. I really liked Alwa's Legacy, for instance. I really liked Alwa's Awakening that came out, I think, 2 years ago. And right now, that game is sitting at 75 reviews. And that is not good. And
no, that is a commercial failure.
And again, it's not about the quality of the game. It's a really solid modern retro platformer. But it didn't get picked up by anybody. It came out in June. We'll remember, what was the game everyone couldn't stop talking about in June? Was that Fall Guys?
Probably.
Let's see. Oh, Fall Guys came out in August. Has it really only been, like, what was that, 4 months since Fall Guys came out? I thought it was longer.
Well, I mean, Fall Guys did have that long ramp up to its release with the free multiplayer night things.
Yeah, I mean, like just looking at my list of top 10 games, I have Hades, Monster Train, Factorio.
Oh, you're going through this already?
Well, I'm just talking about the independent side of things. I'm not going to list them here, but we had so many solid indie games that came out that most people didn't even cover or really discuss. I mean, Factorio, I think, is a really big surprise one. Because we've been talking about this one, saying that whatever year Factorio came out, that should be on the top 10 list, right?
Yeah. And there is it came out and pretty much very little people noticed it. The only people that really noticed it is the ones that were already making content for Factorio. Through the early access.
Yeah. I mean, I only even got nominated for the Steam Awards. And again, that's kind of the issue that we talk about when it comes to game coverage. That unless you have a lot of money or you get incredibly lucky, most people aren't going to hear about you.
Yep. Should we go and do our list now?
I guess we
already expunged most of yours.
Yeah, I guess we should, and then we'll get back to talking more about, I guess, 2020. So, since I've been talking for the last few minutes, I'll let you go first, Shark. So, what were your top 10?
Well, I did not have 10 that I would put in my top from this year. Because I don't have as many games as you do, but some ones that I liked, very much, that would be in my top 10. Well, we have 4 that would definitely be in there. We have Factorio. That's on my list. We have Hardcore Mecha, which was an amazing game. I don't even need to say anything about Factorio. Factorio is just, default kind of thing. But Hardcore Mecha is a very, very amazing game. It's a platformer where you pilot basically a Gundam, all kinds of references to Gundam, beautiful cutscene, beautiful, amazing animations. Like they have gone every little special thing they could put in there. Like I struggle to even complain about anything. Like anywhere where I think the game could be improved, it's like there's hardly basically any. Like the only place that I can think of right off the top of my head is in certain parts they could have made the text a little bit bigger. And that's my main complaint. That is my leading complaint right there. And looking for stuff to complain about, it is a super solid game. And Josh really needs to play it because it is amazing. Another one would be Monster Train, because that was a really, really good one, based off of Slay the Spire, which apparently, Monster Train isn't even getting it. A lot of people have heard, about Slay the Spire, but they don't even know what Monster Train is. It's like, really?
And there's still people don't know what Slay the Spire is.
Yeah, which is surprising. But like, it's even more surprising that people who know about Slay the Spire in great detail doesn't know anything about Monster Train at all. And the last one that is definitely in there is Streets of Rage 4. Really, really solid beat 'em up. Just the best beat 'em up this year. one of the best beat 'em ups out there. Although I do have a lot of complaints on it, but they're mostly on the minor side. But now then, this didn't release this year, but it came out this year in early access, kind of thing. Final Upgrade. Really love that game. It's pretty rough in a lot of ways, but the gameplay is there, and it's really, really solid, and it's very Factorio-like. So if you like Factorio, Final Upgrade is probably something you should check out. And it's not just Factorio in space. It is quite a bit different, but it's clearly has a lot of roots in the Factorio genre. Now then, two games that I am sort of hesitant to put on my list, not because they're not good games, but because of two reasons, and I'll get to those one at a time. Okay, so the first one is Hades. The reason why I'm hesitant to put Hades on my list is because I bounced off of it, because they did not have a mode to, address players like me who are not good with that, great with that kind of game. And, and supposedly now they do, but I haven't went back to it. So, until then, I can't really say. But, I did enjoy the time I spent on it until I got frustrated and I bounced, kind of thing. And the other one would be Ori and the Willow Wisp, which I have not played it. I own it, but I have not played it yet. I have played the original, and, I've seen Willow Wisp, played, and it looks really, really good. It looks like, Ori, but more and better. And that's pretty much the end of my list.
And I think what you said about bouncing off of games, I think that's another topic we may have to come back to in a future piece, about how many games fail to understand that you really only have one chance to get somebody invested in it. And if you fail, it doesn't matter what you do later, doesn't matter if you fix it post-launch or even post-early access, you're not getting those people back. They have too many other games to play. And probably one of my first major design pieces that will go up either this week or right at the beginning of 2021, I talked about this idea, again, of why the Cyberpunk 2077 failure is such a big deal for developers to understand. Is that there are people who will probably never trust a CD Projekt Red game ever again. Just as there's people who will never play a game from Hello Games again. After, the whole No Man's Sky issue. Or even, BioWare as well, all the stuff they've done. And it's easy for people to look at these stories as, having happy endings. The game gets fixed. But the problem is, you don't want to release a game that has issues and then fix them down the line. You want to release a game that's good day one.
Of course, no game will ever be 100% day one, because no game will ever be 100%. But you need to be as close to that as you can possibly be.
Yeah.
Without sinking your studio.
And again, this is one of those lessons that indie developers have to learn, that just because this is, I think, one of those big debates that we see developers and people say, you should be proud that your game is released. And it's like, yes, but you also understand what was the state of your game when it was released. Because if you're trying to do things commercially, you can't just release a game, half-ass and say, why is anybody buying my game?
Yeah, you got to whole ass your games. If you're going to release a commercial game, you have to do whole ass or no ass.
There's some D-mods for the end of the year.
Well, you half-assed the explanation.
And like we've said, like when I look at some of the games that are on my list, I guess I'll go over mine really fast. So I already mentioned Yakuza Like a Dragon. All Was Legacy would be on there. XCOM Chimera Squad. Like, this is a game that I think it definitely rode on Firaxis's coattails. It was not released as supposed to be the next big budget XCOM game. It was kind of like them doing like a throwaway concept and turning it into a full title. Or, I guess, a budget title, because it was only released at $20. And I liked the game, but it still had some major cracks in it. But, again, it's Firaxis. And a lot of people need to understand there's a difference between being a no-name developer and being a Nintendo or a Blizzard or a CD Projekt Red.
Mm-hmm.
Let me see. Some of the other go ahead.
Now, I want to talk a little bit about your point earlier about Hades, and I want to go back to it, but like you said, there's a good chance I never will, because I bounced off of it already, and it will be. I have a lot of games I got to play, and
I don't. I don't play video games here.
It's questionable if I will ever go back and give Hades a second chance, despite me wanting to.
Yeah. And again, the developer fallacy is, if I fix it eventually, people will love me for it. No. If you fix it eventually, people will go, yay, and they won't play it.
Mm-hmm. And that's assuming that they even kept the game and didn't refund it.
And that's even assuming that they kept up with you as well and know what you're up to.
Yeah, knew that you actually released your 1.0. Released your fixes, kind of thing.
Let's see. What was that comment? We talked about how much stuff was dragged out. You mean regarding like the whole crunch and some of the more nastier stuff, Mr. Elwood? While I wait for his comment. Oh yeah, there we go. Well, we haven't really gotten there yet. We've been talking about kind of the indie market so far. We'll probably talk about that after we finish our top 10. Let's see, time-wise, we're about an hour and 10 in. So I'll finish my games, and then we'll go over to, or we'll try to finish them. We keep going on these rants because of our topics. Speaking about another game that I think kind of did something very interesting that really should have been talked about more was Project Starship X. This was the roguelike shmup, which, speaking of roguelike shmups, Monolith is another game that did some amazing things in terms of being a roguelike bullet hell kind of game, and nobody heard of it. Nobody really played it. Project Starship X has 31 reviews, so I think that's even worse than Alwa at this point. And it is a game that legitimately is a bullet hell roguelike. They describe it as a roguelite. I don't know if I would describe it as a roguelite. I think it would be fair to call it a roguelike. And Monolith has... Okay, it has over 1,000 reviews, which is better, but probably not as well as they wanted it to be. And... yeah, this is the issue, like when we talk about that, these are games that legitimately did something unique, and they still failed. Or they still didn't really gather a huge market. And to Soren's comment, well, I like to think of myself as an indie YouTuber at this point with all the games that I've played, but even with that, like, every game that I cover, I'm missing what? 50 other games released that week, at least?
Probably.
Oh, I thought I lost you for a second.
And yes, I have played AIAI, and
I played that too.
Did not like it.
Me neither.
I did not even make it all the way through the tutorial because it was just like, like I was driving this spaceship and it's have this thing follow you, and it's some kind of escort mission because we all know those are great. and it's an escort tutorial mission. And you move, and you have to wait for this thing to delay move behind you, and you've got to navigate these pinpoint turns and everything, and it's like no.
And
it's like even if that would have been the last board, that was way too much of a pain. There was not even any bullets in the bullet hell tutorial that I went through.
No bullets in hell.
That's all referring to IAI.
Yeah. Speaking about games about bullet hell, that BPM game did not make my list, but I do want to give it a shout out for being such a unique take of a rhythm-based FPS. It's one of those designs, I say this, I cannot do rhythm time games. I have no ability to do those games, so I bounce off of that within 4 minutes of playing on stream. But it is a very solid game in that aspect. And to Mr. Elwood's comment about games that have less than 200 reviews, I like that Vision Software set, and it has 28 reviews. I like games that have less than 30 reviews on Steam.
Made by Other Shark.
I need to find Other Josh and get him back on as well. No current multiplayer between number of reviews on Steam. Do you know what he's asking?
No, I'm unsure.
Yeah, I'm not sure what you're asking about there, Mr. Elwood. While we wait for that comment, some of the other games I really liked. The Dreadex Collection, another really solid example, and probably something I'm going to mention in my horror book. That we had 3 micro games released in the span of a year. All made of, 20 to 40 minute long games. And I don't know how well that did. Dreadex 3 has about 115 reviews. So, not that well. But, again...
They didn't have to do very well in theory, because the thing is that would be a really cheap way to make a game. You basically just hold a month or so game jam with certain rules and everything, and if somebody obeys all the rules and everything and submits the entry, the best entries get entered into the core game, and the core game just is a elaborate menu basically that has a little bit of gameplay in it too, that leads you to other games. And it's a really interesting concept, because that in itself would be a game jam. So it'd be like multiple game jams form into one real game, and it would be something fun to do, quick to do, and very low risk.
Yep. And we had a discussion about micro game success, and it's very tough, I think, again, with what people expect when they buy games these days.
Yeah, but when you have that, the Dreadex was not a micro game; it was a bunch of micro games put in together. It was basically a almost WarioWare kind of thing.
Oh, he's talking about how reviews relate to copies sold.
Oh, the old one, the old ratio was 1 review for every 50 copies sold. But in 2019, I think it was, that ratio changed to 1 in 30. So there will be, any game released after 2019, or would be on that 1 out of 30 kind of thing, and any game that is still going after January, or after 2019 came around, their numbers after that point would be basically 1 out of 30, and you would have to figure up the the early numbers is 1 out of 50, and the later numbers are 1 out of 30, because Steam changed something in their algorithm or something. I don't know what they did, but they changed something to encourage more reviews.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it's stupid of Steam to not let developers encourage reviews on their game, kind of thing. Like, you shouldn't be able to, manipulate it, as a, just, give it, ask for a review right after they started playing or ask it right after they won or anything. But it should be like on the main, the title screen kind of thing. Like the like the game, leave a review kind of thing. Hate the game, leave a review. Kind of thing. Or just Steam physically sending you a message, saying, hey, you played this game for so long, would you like to, leave a review kind of thing. Like once they get like 30, once they get maybe 45 minutes of game time in kind of thing.
Yeah. And again, it's a very tough thing because, somebody will complain and say, why is the game telling me to leave a review? Just like they do on mobile all the time.
Yeah. It should honestly be done on Steam side to make everything, 100% fair and flatlined kind of thing.
Yeah.
But, at the same time, Steam needs to improve their review system because just the arbitrary thumbs up or thumbs down is not good, kind of thing. I mean, you get these, your review bombs because Steam's review system is crap. Because, it's a good game, but the, monetization is absolutely crap. Rather than having, the monetization, like having an actual review system that you can be like, yeah, thumbs down the hell out of the monetization and everything else is thumbs up kind of thing. Or, has a score 1 through 5 kind of thing. And, there's so many things they could do, but they don't do any of it. They have just the arbitrary up or down in one category, the game. So, yeah, I mean, like, and a monetization system very much affects the game. And so, having that, I mean, those games that change their monetization system to a bad monetization definitely earn that thumbs down. But, Steam needs a more gradient system. That's the reason why you get the inverse bell curve, because the fact is that's the only thing Steam gives you the option for. Because if people can only leave a thumbs up or only leave a thumbs down and there's no in between from polar opposites kind of thing, then everybody in the middle is going to not do anything. If they thought it was all right, there's no like, thumbs equal, thumb sideways kind of thing. There is none of that. You have to do up or down, meaning that you have to do the inverse bell curve, and there's that's one of the main reasons why we have that inverse bell curve is because Steam has a really shitty review system.
Yeah.
And then they go through and they go and make it where like certain reviews don't count. And when a game changes its monetization system to a really bad system and everything, Steam may count a lot of those things as not counting.
If you don't buy the game off of Steam, I think your review still doesn't count, right?
Oh, you can't even review the game on Steam if you don't buy it. You can buy the game and then return it afterwards, and your review still stays up. But if you buy the game, if you don't buy the game, you can't leave a review on Steam. You can comment on the forum.
And again, it's still a mystery for a lot of people as to, does my review count? How many reviews do you need for your game to count? Or, for the game to get...
Steam wants your review to count. And if you get a free copy of the game, like a press key or something, your review doesn't count.
Mm-hmm.
In the score anyway. It's still listed on there, but it doesn't count in the score.
Yeah. And again, it's very hard for a lot of developers to even get 100 legitimate reviews.
Mm-hmm. I know I only managed, 14? But you have games in your library that have 14 or less reviews.
Mm-hmm.
As do I. I made games with 14 or less reviews.
Getting back to my list, Factorio I already mentioned, Monster Train. I put Ori and the Willow Wisps on my list because I thought it was a really standout platformer. And it was a part of one of my, I think, biggest design pieces I wrote this year about using achievements to kind of track player engagement and talking more about onboarding and retention like that. Because when we looked at Ori and the Will of the Wisp, again, we were both surprised that over half the people who bought the game actually saw it through to the end.
Mm-hmm.
And again, that's part of a lot of our discussions, that the topics that we discuss, you don't really think. I think from the outside, they're all that important. But I think they really do matter in terms of, trying to figure out why certain games do better than others.
Mm-hmm. And I think the achievement thing is definitely something that can be tracked in a lot of ways, but it's not even across the board because, like, depending on the game to how they do their achievements. Like, I know, like, Ark, the way it does its achievements is basically, unless you put, I don't know, like probably like 300 or 400 hours into the game, you're not going to get more than 3 achievements. So there's going to be a massive fall off on that game.
Yeah.
There is a massive fall off because, like, there's 3 achievements. It's like, oh, you capture a dinosaur at any one. Oh, you got a level. And, one I think is you rode a dinosaur. And then everything else is like, you hit level 9,000,
you played a game for 5 years.
And like that hit max level and hit like rode on a T-Rex, that is like easy compared to every achievement they have after that. Those are like the second easiest achievements kind of thing.
Yeah. And here's something interesting. Will the Wisp has actually gone down because more people have bought it. So now the completion rate sits at 47.5%, which is still really impressive for that game. Let me see, what did Will say? I think some of the better examples of achievements are those that apply to like a trophy room design, that you have an in-world place where you can view the achievements, or they grow, or they do something like that. And again, there's a difference between good and bad achievement design. That's another topic we could probably talk about at some point in 2021.
Yeah, and you want to have you don't want to do like Art does and put a few really easy ones and make every other one impossibly hard. You want, when I did my achievements for the Word of the Day Chromasia, what I did is I spaced it out to where they would, in theory, have an even stream of achievements as they played. Like, maybe like at the beginning, maybe they're getting an achievement every 10 minutes kind of thing. At the, you get a little bit farther into the game and maybe it's every, 20 minutes now. You go a little bit farther in the game and maybe it's every, 30 minutes or 40 minutes or something. And then you go a little bit farther in the game and it's like every hour kind of thing. And you go a little bit farther and maybe every few hours kind of thing. And then you go in, farther and you get the last like 3 or 4 that are, probably 10, 15 hours after that, after you get to the few hours kind of thing. So like several hours at that point. But, there's like 10 or 15, hours, and there's probably about another 3 or 4 achievements in there. So that's like still like what 3-4 hours kind of thing at that point between them. So like I tried to evenly space them out. I designed them in such a way that it would be a you could literally track the progress. Although I wasn't thinking about that back then. But I wanted it to, be, have a good distribution in there rather than having all these achievements, right at one place or the other place or be super hard. Because thing is if you get all the achievements in a game, if you 100% a game, then there's a special thing that you can show on your Steam page, which acts as marketing for anybody who sees your Steam page.
Yep.
So, in theory, you want as many people as possible to get all your achievements, but at the same time, you want them to feel earned, so don't put them all in like the first 5 minutes of your game.
Yeah.
Because they're not going to list that, they're not going to put that on their Steam page if they weren't, if they didn't feel earned kind of thing. So you want to make them feel earned, but make it where anybody who 100% your game is going to have all the achievements. Don't make them grind and crap after they 100% your game. Because I've had so many games that I've 100%ed the game, but I'm still like 20 or 30 achievements away from getting it because, I 100% of the game and I've killed 5,670 enemies, but I have to get 20,000 enemies to get this one achievement. It's like, what? The top achievement on that should have been 5,000, not 20,000. That's like, I have to 100% your game 4 times to get that achievement. And that's not good.
But to get back to my list, so I do have to go in about maybe another 15-20 minutes. We'll see. Speaking about Doom Eternal is definitely on my list. I really enjoy that game, and I'm surprised it wasn't on more first-person shooter fans' lists. Because the gunplay is probably one of the most satisfying thing I've seen out of the genre. Maybe next to something like Ultra Kill. Which Ultra Kill and World of Horror are definitely on my I can't wait to play them finished in 2021 lists. And again, I think it goes back to this discussion about I think a lot of people don't look at the gameplay when it comes to playing a video game these days. They look at, all the ancillary stuff as whether to judge it good or bad. Which is also, I think, kind of where Last of Us got a lot of its noms and controversy this year.
Oh, yeah. There was nothing wrong with that game.
I still haven't played it yet, so I can't say too much about, but maybe that'll be my 2021 pick. I hated Spelunky 2, so I'll talk about Last of Us 2 for 2021. Perfect. And then I'll get my 3,000 subscribers, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Let's see. And then Hades is definitely on my list. I played Hades throughout its early access, and as somebody who is more versed in action roguelike or action design, it fit better for me. And I definitely brought it up a lot in my book on roguelikes, because it is a really solid example of kind of, I think, what people expect out of a modern-day quote-unquote roguelike. That the story is integrated into the gameplay, it accommodates a very wide level of skill. Now, that is, with the God mode and the Pact of Punishment. And of course, it has a really solid aesthetic, writing, and the music from Supergiant is always a standout.
I'll get right on that email, Mike.
And yeah, to Will's point, it feels like a different game than Doom 2016. So I think it kind of burnt its fans at both ends. The people who looked at it and go, oh, it's just like Doom 2016, then didn't buy it, missed out. And the people who play it thinking, oh, I want to play it because it's like Doom 2016, hate it because it's nothing like it.
Mm-hmm.
There you go. People
Sadly.
still... Mm-hmm.
That's like the number one way that I've heard to market a game.
Mm-hmm. You either hate it because it's different, or you hate it that it's different. You can't get it. You can't win there.
It's safely extreme.
Mm-hmm. But games like having Hades, Monster Train, Ori on my list, I think again represent this growing concern that you really need to go all out, I think, to even have a half chance of succeeding in the game industry these days.
Mm-hmm.
Because even though games like All Walls Legacy, Dreadex, Project Starship X are on my list, they were all great games, but like we say, they didn't pop. Like, you put a screenshot of a Dreadex game and you put that next to Resident Evil 3, or The Last of Us, or Doom, what are people going to resonate more with?
Yeah. And you look at my list, Streets of Rage, that's a big developer. Monster Train, they're not a big developer, but they're certainly
not small.
Yeah. Same thing goes with Factorio. Same thing goes with Hardcore Mecha. Same thing goes with Hades and Ori. None of these are small indies.
Mm-hmm.
They're large indies and one AAA. You would count Streets of Rage 4 as AAA, wouldn't you?
Yeah, I think at this point. And
so, the only small indie that got on my list was Final Upgrade, which is technically not even released. Yeah. And, that's the one I said the least about because the fact is there's a lot of problems with that game. Mm-hmm. Lots of problems, but it's really, really good.
Yeah.
And there is definitely a good chance that game will go the same way that the others did and have nobody will ever hear about that game.
Yeah.
Except for the 31 people that watch of my subscribers, that the portion of them that watch this video, and the portion of your 6,000 that watch your video.
Yeah.
Which is probably going to be less than 1% of both.
Yep. And again, if your game, we've said this before, if your game doesn't immediately hook somebody, most people aren't going to play that game. Like, for myself, we play a game, if we would have stopped, 2 minutes in Division Soft Reset, nobody would have played that game. I think I'm one of the few people who gave that game more than 20 minutes of their time. And the sad part is, I don't think that's hyperbole. I think a lot of people who looked at that game either stopped before 20 minutes, or they stopped negative minutes. They looked at, one screenshot or one video and said, I don't want to play this.
Yeah, because the art aesthetics were not there.
Yeah.
It was definitely not bad art. It was pretty decent art. But for a commercial game, that was shit art.
Yeah.
And you have to remember that commercial games have such high standards.
Oh, yeah. I mean, again, Ori is, the ugliest game on our list, right?
Yeah. If you look at, if you want to know what takes it to make a commercially successful game, one thing, rather, is when somebody looks at your game, they got to go, oh, wow.
Yeah, I said that on my list. I said presentation is huge these days. People don't want to buy ugly-looking games. And
yeah, I've seen, Hardcore Mecha. Me and Josh were both like, "Oh wow!" When
I saw World of Horror,
oh wow! Streets of Rage, oh wow! Ori and the Willow Wisp, oh wow! Hades, oh wow!
Yeah.
The only two exceptions off of that is Factorio, which we went, oh wow, it's actually releasing.
Yeah, it's the well it's out, not the well what it is.
And Final Upgrade.
Yeah.
Which is like, this is the only thing we've seen that's sort of along the lines of Factorio to a large extent. I mean, there was Ministry, but Ministry was kind of inverse Factorio.
Yeah. To Will's comment about Ultra Kill, I don't know if I would say that it's ugly. It's different looking. I think, again, there's a misconception I think a lot of developers have that ugly is the same as different. And it's hard. Like, if you look at something like, excuse me, do you remember when I played, Golden Light on stream? That was the, very weird survival horror game.
I don't.
It was
remember.
like very low field of view, very PlayStation 1, like maybe first generation graphics.
Well, most of the time, intentionally ugly is worse than bad art ugly.
Like again, like New Blood, all their games follow a very retro, old school looking aesthetic to them. Dusk, oh god, I can't believe I forget them. Everyone knows which games I'm talking about. I just can't remember them all the top of my head. Gloomhaven in 2021 I'm really excited about. And, like, those games, they're... Again, it's very... Again, this is the issue when we have our discussions. Like, everything that we say, there are always exceptions to the rules that are very hard to then prove the rules that we talk about.
Mm-hmm. And everybody makes a rule, the exception that Stardew Valley was made by one person, so I can make a, just as good game, commercially viable, and everything by myself. No, you can't.
Yeah. And I want to go back to Will's comment about people having a sixth sense for things that are not authentic. I think that is definitely true. But to the comment about indie should be experimental or very personal, I think that also falls into that trap that if a game is very personal, then I'm not going to take any criticism from it. And, how dare you, say my game is bad when I pour my heart and soul into it. And when I talk to Z again, because he's the developer that came up with that sense, I always say that there's as much art in the business as there is business in the art. That you can do something very personal, but you also need to accept the fact that I shouldn't be spending 5 to 10 years of my life on a very personal pet project and expect it to do well.
Yeah, you shouldn't be spending 5 years of your life on any game.
Mm-hmm.
Because it should be 1 to 3 years.
Mm-hmm.
Although there are exceptions, but you run into problems when you run outside of that time period. Yeah. Of course, that doesn't count for hobbyists kind of thing.
And again, there are games that break that rule. Factorio is 8-9 years it was in development for?
Oh, it's longer than that.
Yeah.
I think it's 12 or 13.
Mm-hmm.
Because it was out before Steam, and Steam came out, I think, in 2008.
Well, Steam's been officially out since 2004, but it didn't launch the actual storefront, I think, until 2007, 2008, somewhere around there.
Which Factorio was out before that point.
Yeah. Oh my god. And I didn't hear about it until 2012.
Yeah, I think it was 2005 or something when Factorio started.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yep, and again, there are developers that will prove to be exceptions to those points, Mr. Elrude. There are some that did really well with one game, and there are some who had to survive off of multiple ones, like Fail Better, Jake Burgett, Cliff Harris, and so on. And it's very hard, and again, why we talk about the importance of game criticism, that you can't just look at review scores and know whether or not that game did truly succeeded in what it set out to do. I am sure, like, to Will's comment about Super Meat Boy, I'm sure Super Meat Boy Forever is going to do really well, and a lot of people try to copy it, and they're going to fail horribly because they don't know why it succeeded.
It succeeded because it was Super Meat Boy.
Bingo.
And it failed. It would fail if it was anything else besides Super Meat Boy.
What I said this on my review, Wonderling. That's a game more people really need to check out because it did the idea of an elevated endless runner, I think, miles above Super Meat Boy. But guess what? People aren't going to be talking about Wonderling.
Yep, and it probably failed too, didn't it?
I'm going to say yes. I haven't even looked at the review score for it, but I'm going to say yes, it did. Yes, it has 26 reviews.
And that's a better game.
Yep.
But it's going to fail. It already has failed, and Super Meat Boy is going to do wildly successful.
It already did. I'm betting it already did really successful.
Yeah, probably.
Mm-hmm.
And, it's sad, when good games fail and bad games succeed.
Yeah.
But that is the truth of our industry.
And why, for myself, and I'm sure for Shark as well, we try to focus on the independent side. Not on, joke games, but on games that legitimately deserve a chance.
Except for on Weird Games segment / Indie Inquiry.
Yeah.
I mean, my last game, I think, was a masterpiece, but I'm a little bit biased. And it felt hard.
Yeah. I've seen very solid. And again, it's hard to decide or to tell what really makes a game truly great. And again, a lot of that is not knowing what goes into the business or in the production side. Because people will think, oh, a game got 1,000 reviews, so it survived or succeeded. No, just because you have 1,000 reviews doesn't mean you earned back the cost of development.
Thanks, Will. I didn't know you had played it. Didn't know most people here had played it.
Like, here's a point. Hand of Fate 2 had almost 4,000 reviews, and it sunk their company. It failed, and it killed Defiant Development. While for another developer, 4,000 reviews would be like if they won the lottery 3 times in a row.
Mm-hmm. And the number of reviews, the number of sales does not tell you if a game will succeed or not, because the fact is the number of sales, inflict, the number of reviews rather inflect the number of sales, and then the number of sales based off of price and the number of sales and how deep those sales would refer to gross income, and then you would half that to get the received income, and then you would have to pay more taxes off of that. But then you would have to take that money and compare that to, how much the studio invested into it. Yeah. And there's no way to tell on that number without, knowing somebody in the studio or having public numbers out there, which pretty much no games do.
And what was the point I was about to say? Uh-oh. I think I just lost my train of thought there. Yeah, and what I was still going to say is that for a lot of people, they still don't understand that when it comes to game design-wise, whether or not the design succeeded, that, yes, just because a game got a lot of sales or is being talked about, doesn't mean that design worked. If you remember the whole BioWare Magic catastrophe that happened, what was that? Either late 2019 or early 2020, I forget now. But people think that, a lot of people bought my game or it's being talked about. That means I succeed on every front. No, it really doesn't. And like we said earlier with Among Us, that Among Us got very big in the last 3 months. That doesn't erase the fact that it had a lot of issues with it. And if you don't talk about those issues and those problems, you're going to make them again. And if you keep making them, you're not going to grow as a company.
Nope. And I hope Art does not make the same mistakes they made in the first one with Art 2.
It's very possible they might. Because it's very hard for developers to say to themselves, yes, I did X, Y, and Z right, but I also failed, 1 through 50 on my list here.
Yeah, and that's what you need to work on before you even release your first commercial game. Because getting feedback is absolutely crucial because, you need to get that feedback. You need to find out what you messed up before you release your first game.
Mm-hmm.
Because even though you find out these 5,000 places where you messed up and you fix them kind of thing, after you release the game, you're going to find 5,000 more places that you messed up in.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and to Will's point, I saw someone on Twitter talking about just that, asking, do I need to play a genre? Do I need to understand a genre to make a game in it? And there are people who say, no, take experience from outside the genre and bring them in. And I'm sitting there going, no. It would be like saying, I want to build a motorcycle, and I've never ridden or owned one before. Let me bring my cooking experience into designing and building a motorcycle.
Yeah, you have this. You design this motorcycle that right there on top of the gas tank. You have this heater, and you can cook pasta in it.
Put all the extra heat on the engine. I'm sure that will, or on the gas tank. That will be really great. That's thinking outside the box.
Yeah. And I really love forks and whatnot. Why don't we take those and integrate those into the handle so that when you put your hands on the handlebars, you're gripping the fork, because everybody loves gripping those flat forks.
Mm-hmm. And again, we could certainly rant more about this, but I do need to get going in a few minutes. So let's bring this back and talk a little bit more about what 2020 has meant for the game industry. And I know it was brought up, I think, by Mr. Elrod earlier about, it was another year for, controversy surrounding, toxic fandom and, a lot of people yelling about video games or yelling about people who talk about video games.
Mm-hmm.
Which is always great.
Video games here.
What was that?
I said we never talked about video games here.
No, and we don't play them either.
Mm-mm.
Like the whole discussion about the fandom of Cyberpunk has been probably the standout example, right? Probably next to The Last of Us in terms of industry controversy.
Yeah, because the way I see Cyberpunk is there's parts of a good game in there, but there's so much of a train wreck on top of it. It's hard to see the good parts of the game.
But again, people bought it because of CD Projekt Red. If any other studio would have made Cyberpunk 2077, they probably would have been closed by now as a company.
Yeah, like if my studio had made it.
You could do that in a week, right?
I can do it in an hour if I skip lunch.
And the fandom over that game is just, again, another one of those crazy examples. I saw people begging to get Cyberpunk chairs and cover the game, and then they would criticize people who said there were problems with the game. Because the people who got the Cyberpunk marketed gamer chairs are, going to be unbiased or non-biased when they talk about reviewing it.
Yeah, they would have zero bias. And we have a perfect example. If say my studio did make Cyberpunk and everything, fact is, all the hype that's out there wouldn't exist, because right now I'm making a Cyberpunk game that is very beautiful and will already, has a chance of blowing up and everything. Nobody knows about it.
Mm-hmm.
Nobody's seen it, despite all the stuff I've posted about it, kind of thing. Like, we talk about it here weekly. We talk, about both my channel and Josh's channel. I do my dev streams weekly.
Mm-hmm.
I have Twitter posts about it quite often. Have all kinds of stuff out there on it. And there's not so much of a whisper of the game out there other than on my Discord. And there's not even all that much of a whisper on my Discord of it.
Mm-hmm.
In Josh's Discord kind of thing. And people are going to look back and, people are going to use, let's just say my game blows up, next year kind of thing, or whenever it comes out. And it blows up and it's a wild success and everything. People are going to use my game as an example of, a quote unquote single developer, even though I outsourced, a programmer and a character artist. And they're going to be like, oh, he was a single developer and he made this indie smash hit and he did not do anything to market it until after it released, till after it succeeded. It's like, no, I have put in all this effort and everything, and I haven't even really started marketing. I'm just doing my slow run up because, we talked about this in marketing, topic a while back, to where there's two ways to market. One where you're an indie, unknown, and one where you're known. Where you're unknown, you need to explode out onto the scene in the last 6 months kind of thing, or 6 weeks or something. I can't remember the time frame, but you need to explode out with all this super polished stuff and just bam, 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 constantly. And you can still, market through devlogs and other stuff, but, don't really, really go out there kind of thing. Where knowns kind of thing, they can sprinkle out their good stuff all over the place, and there will be hype for several years, like Cyberpunk kind of thing. They sprinkled out good stuff all throughout the time, and there was hype all throughout the time kind of thing. Where with the indie, an unknown, rather, not necessarily indie, but there's known indies and unknown indies. But with the unknown indie, if you do that, you might get a lot of hype for a few days kind of thing, and then it's going to die off, and then you're going to release another one, and it's going to build up hype for a couple of days and then die off, and you're going to repeat that over and over again. And when you release, you're only going to have 2 days worth of hype because only the recent hype mattered.
Yeah.
Where what you need to do is explode, just hype. You just release all this stuff during that last period and just build the hype just constantly, all the way up until release, and then bam, hype, ending, and release. Because you want that hype. You want the maximum number of hype at the end, right when you release, kind of thing. And if you're Cyberpunk kind of thing, you can do that just by sprinkling your good stuff out throughout. But if you're unknown, you can't do it that way.
Yeah. And to the comments in chat, again, you need to have passion, but like we've said, it has to be tempered. You have to understand the business side of development. Because it doesn't matter if you have the most innovative idea or even the most passionate idea if you can't make a product that people want to play. And again, that's where that distinction between hobbyist and developer comes in, what we've talked about. That if you don't care about making money in this industry, you can make whatever the heck you want and you don't have to listen to us. But if you are trying to succeed, you have to understand that there has to be a product in place. And yeah, to Mr. Wood's point, passion doesn't bring money, business does. And it's very tough because people will point out that, something like Stardew Valley earned a lot of money, it was made out of passion. But again, every development is different. And he was, I think, a solo dev for a long time on that project. And yeah, and again, it's tough to know what exactly goes into the success of these games. To Shark's comment about marketing, that like games like Darkest Dungeon, Slay the Spire, Dead Cells, and so on, there are people who looked at those games because they think of them as they just showed up one day being amazing titles. They didn't do any marketing. No, they did months and in some cases years of marketing to build up hype around those games. It just so happens you didn't hear about it until 2 weeks after its launch.
Yeah. And if you didn't hear about it, then you missed a majority of the marketing.
Mm-hmm. But I think with that, I do need to start to head out. So, any final 2020 thoughts from you, Shark, before we wrap things up?
Well, we had a long one today, that's for sure. And while 2020 is going out and we're entering 2021, 2021 is not going to be a vast bit different. What we're currently going through is going to still continue to go through. Matter of fact, I'm betting that 2021 is going to be even worse. Mm-hmm. In a lot of ways. And it'll be better in some ways, but I think it's going to be a lot worse in a lot of ways because there's all these conspiracies about the vaccine and everything, and those things are only going to grow once the vaccine actually comes out, and there's going to be a lot of people who refuse to get it, and having the vaccine is going to be pointless when that is the case, and we're going to be still stuck in lockdown with a vaccine for probably several more years, and more people are going to die because people keep on doing stupid things because of it, and things are going to continue to be bad. The year is over, but things are going to continue to be bad. It's going to be 2020, the sequel, basically. Although hopefully, bless you, hopefully on the presidential side, things will be improved. Hopefully, but the first year is going to be really rocky because one president purposely screwed over the next one coming in. Mm-hmm. So, sabotage. So, you can expect his first year to not be very good because of that. And which is going to cause more people to lose their lives. And, I expect, kind of the same thing going to happen in game development. Everything bad going on now is probably going to continue to happen bad. We might see some improvement in some areas. We're going to see things worse in other areas. It's not going to be, it's probably going to be 2 or 3 years before we see any real, normalcy. And by that point, that normalcy will probably be worse than the normalcy we had 2 years ago. Mm-hmm. So, it's grim words to go out on, but the fact is more games are going to be released on Steam. That number is going to keep on going up. Mm-hmm. The number of indies that die is going to keep on going up. The number of of titles that get noticed is going to go up slightly. The number of the money that those successes make are going to go down in average. And, it's a trend that we're going to see go over. And it's not going to be pretty. And we as indies have to adapt and pay attention to what's happening in the market. And, as the world too, because all that affects how games sell. Mm-hmm. And people are, if you make a game that is topical about, something funny kind of thing, people are not going to take you serious for the most part. And it's going to be wrong.
Mm-hmm. And again, with the chat, that we need to have more people understand why a game works. Because it's not just business and it's not just art. You can be the most business minded company and fail because you can't put out something people want to play. Just as you can be the most artistic company and fail because you do nothing that is, making a quality product. And at the end of the day, a video game is both art and a product. It can't be one or the other. And for like my thoughts on 2021, I do think it's still going to be rough. And I do wonder what we're going to hear from developers such as BioWare, or even companies like Blizzard and CD Projekt Red, who have not had, exactly the most solid 2020, to say the least. Mm-hmm. And what that means in terms of, this idea that a company is too big to fail. Because I don't know, like, I've always been very suspect of companies like Bethesda and BioWare, and in terms of just how well they really do, because I always have very serious systemic issues with their games. But they do well because of the names surrounding them. But considering, the failures of Anthem and Fallout 76, what does that mean about their next game? And I guess here's my final point. What does it mean to release a game in the AAA space if you don't have, the clout of that company to fall back on? Like, how will a Bethesda game do now that people know about Fallout 76? How will CD Projekt Red do after everyone remembers what Cyberpunk 2077 was like?
Mm-hmm. I wanted to go back and tackle something you said about, art and development kind of thing. It's not just art and development, though, or art and business kind of thing. Basically, I've said this many times, like, if you want a good commercial game that has a good chance of, and by good chance, I don't mean, a high percentage chance. I mean a good chance of you've ticked all the boxes that will likely lead to success. Give you that higher percentage, put you in that percentage kind of thing. You need to have, you need to grade your own skills, first of all. Like say I'm I'm probably an F grade programmer. Mm-hmm. I am a, B grade pixel artist. I'm probably about a B plus grade, maybe an A minus grade of UI artist. I'm a A plus writer. I'm an A plus, designer kind of thing. And like you rate out your skills kind of thing. Mm-hmm. And what you want to have is you want to have across your team, make sure there is a B or better in every single field. And that includes the art, the programming, the marketing, the business, all of it. You need B or better in all those categories so that you can make a fully well-rounded product that can ship. Because if the game is lacking in any area, you're going to cause bad things to happen. If the UI is bad, Josh is going to fall off. If the art is bad, most people aren't even going to pick it up. If the programming is bad, because it's laggy, full of bugs, everybody who doesn't buy Bethesda games are going to stop playing it.
Or CD Projekt Red.
Yeah, or CD Projekt Cyberpunk. Mm-hmm. If the game design is bad, then people aren't going to care about your game. Josh is definitely not going to play it for very long. That's for sure. I won't play it for long either. If the music is horrible and playing a weird sound effect every 10 seconds, most people are going to stop playing it. If any one of these areas lack, if the marketing lacks, then nobody's going to know about the game. If the business side lacks, then there's all kinds of problems that can arise. You know, you need a B or better in every category across your team, because if you have any holes, you're going to, possibly screw up your entire game. Even one single hole can sink the entire ship. You have this, Titanic and everything, and it, hit an iceberg, got one hole in it, and that whole thing went down. It only takes one hole. It only takes one hole to sink your entire game dev ship.
Mm-hmm. And if you do everything right, you can still fail.
Yeah, and even if you have all that stuff, that doesn't mean you succeed.
Just gives you a greater chance.
It gives you basically a chance, because the only way you're going to succeed outside of having that is by winning the lottery. You got that hole. You may have like 500 holes in your ship, but somehow the grace of God has shined down upon your ship, and somehow all of those holes are just above the waterline, and even when the water splashes, something in physics causes, like the quantum waves cause it to somehow go right straight for the hole, and then right before it gets it immediately makes a 90-degree turn and lands back in the ocean, because you have struck the lottery of luck, kind of thing.
I think here's the perfect analogy, that game development is all about surviving XCOM luck. That you can have a 99% chance to succeed and you will still fail. Just as there are developers who have a 20% chance to succeed and they do it perfectly, or they will succeed.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it sinks your game dev yacht. We all have yachts, right?
Yeah, we all have yachts.
But I do have to get going for tonight, so I think we will wrap things up here. So I hope everybody enjoyed the final show of 2020. This will be going up, I think, record-wise, right on December 31st. So for anyone watching this record right now, I hope you have a great New Year's Eve. If you are new, be sure to check out my Discord and Patreon link down below, and you'll find links to Shark's Discord, Twitter, and his channel as well, linked down.
Yeah, and this Saturday on January 2nd, right after the new year, we'll be having our once-a-month dev chat on our Discord, and hopefully, if things go right, we'll have a playable version of Neon Continuum there. So, and if not, we'll definitely have a lot to show. So either way, you're in for a treat there if you're come and participate in that on January 2nd at 2 p.m. Central Time. And, like Josh said, links to all my Discord, my channels, Twitter, and all that stuff, and Josh's channels, all in the descriptions of both his video and my video. And, of course, links to my channel and his channel, YouTube channels, that you can watch this show on both of them, is also down there in the description. And also, don't forget to subscribe, like, and, ring the bell if you want to actually see these live streams live. Because YouTube ain't going to give them to you otherwise, other than recorded version.
Yep, and we will be back next Sunday in the new year around 4:30 ET for our next show. But that is going to do it. So, until next time, everybody, have a great rest of your Sunday. Come back for daily discussions on game design here and on Game Wisdom, where we examine the art and science of games. And we will see you, I guess, in 2021.